Let me ask you something, and I need you to really sit with this for a second. How many times did you almost break and didn't? How many times did the situation look so impossible, so perfectly engineered to destroy you, that even you started believing it was over? Because I've been watching people like you, and what happened to you wasn't bad luck. That was architecture. That wasn't a coincidence. That was a construction. Somebody or something built that situation specifically around your weak points. They knew exactly where to hit, exactly when to pull the floor out, exactly which person to use, which moment to ruin, which dream to torch. And the craziest part, you survived it. You're still here, and they didn't plan for that. Let that land. Really let it land. The trap was custom built. The walls were closing in from every direction. The people involved, they had front row seats, popcorn in hand, betting on your collapse. And somehow, you didn't give them the ending they paid for. That's not luck. That's not coincidence. That's something in you that science hasn't named yet. There's a force inside certain people that activates the moment the pressure becomes unbearable. Most people call it resilience, but resilience is too soft a word for what you carry. What you have is something darker, something older, something that only wakes up when it smells annihilation. Now let's talk about what actually happened, because most people won't say this out loud. The situation wasn't just hard, it was designed. There's a difference between a storm and a trap, and you were in a trap. Think about the timing. Think about who was involved. Think about how perfectly every piece fell at once. Doesn't that seem a little too precise to be random? Here's something they never teach you in school, never talk about in therapy sessions, never post about on the internet. There is a pattern, a very specific, very cold, very calculated pattern that shows up in the lives of people who are meant for something unusual. The pattern is this: the bigger the thing you're being prepared for, the more impossible the obstacle that precedes it. It's not poetic, it's not a story, it's a law of pressure, and pressure doesn't care about your feelings. Think about steel. Raw iron ore doesn't become steel by sitting in a nice warm room being encouraged. It gets crushed, melted, exposed to temperatures that would destroy anything weaker, then shaped under force while it's still burning. The process looks like destruction. From the iron's perspective, it probably feels like destruction. But the end result is something that couldn't have existed without every single moment of that process. You were the iron ore, and they thought they were melting you down into nothing. But they didn't understand the metallurgy. They didn't understand that the heat wasn't killing the potential, it was releasing it. Every betrayal, every closed door, every whispered they'll never make it, was adding carbon to the compound. They were building you. They just didn't know it. And now neither do you, yet. Now here's where it gets interesting. Here's where most motivation videos go soft, and I refuse to. Let's talk about them. The ones who built the trap. The ones who watched it spring. Because understanding them, really understanding what drives people like that, is one of the most powerful weapons you can have. And once you understand it, you'll never see them the same way again. People who work hard to destroy someone else's path are not strong people. Let me say that again. They are not powerful. They are not smart. They are not winning. People who dedicate energy to collapsing someone else's structure do it because they can feel something about that person that they cannot name and cannot stand. They sense magnitude. They sense future. And it terrifies them on a level they'll never admit. This is the part nobody talks about. Envy doesn't announce itself. It doesn't show up wearing a sign saying I'm threatened by you. It shows up wearing concern. It shows up wearing advice. It shows up wearing friendship, sometimes for years, until the moment it sees an opportunity to remove you from the equation. That's not weakness in you for trusting it. That's predatory behavior in them for wearing that disguise. So let me ask you, when you replay what happened, Does it feel like the people involved moved with unusual coordination? Does it feel like they knew which moment to strike? Does it feel like too many pieces collapsed simultaneously to be random? That feeling isn't paranoia. That's pattern recognition. Your subconscious has been solving this equation since it happened. And what it's telling you is, you were targeted because you matter. Full stop. But here's the question nobody is asking. Here's the thing that keeps me up at night when I think about stories like yours. If the trap was so well built, if the timing was so precise, if so many people and circumstances aligned against you, then why are you still here? Why didn't it work? What is the variable they miscalculated? Because something was definitely miscalculated, and I think I know what it is. They built the trap around the version of you that existed before the trap was set. They planned for the person you were, the trusting one, the open one, the one who hadn't yet learned what they were capable of. But the moment the trap sprung, you began changing. And they were too busy celebrating to notice. Every second you spent in that impossible situation, you were becoming someone the original plan had no answer for. This is a documented psychological phenomenon. Researchers call it post-traumatic growth. But that phrase doesn't capture it. It doesn't capture the way certain people don't just recover from catastrophic pressure. They mutate. Their threat detection sharpens. Their trust calibration resets. Their tolerance for nonsense permanently collapses. They become, functionally, a different organism. Harder, quieter, more lethal in how they move. The people who set the trap were betting on a version of you that no longer exists. And the cruel irony, the poetic, almost cinematic irony, is that they are the ones who deleted that version of you. They reached into the timeline and removed the only version of you they could have beaten. They manufactured their own worst nightmare, and they're still out there unaware of what they built. Now I want to address the people watching this who are in the quiet period. The weird, uncomfortable, disorienting stillness that comes after the impossible thing happens. Where the dust has settled, you're still standing, and you don't know what to do with yourself. This silence isn't emptiness. And I need you to understand that before you do something to fill it. Most people in the quiet period make their worst decisions. They either move too fast, chasing revenge, chasing distraction, chasing validation from people who don't understand what they went through. Or they go too still, let the paralysis set in, let the self-doubt metastasize, let the story they're telling themselves become maybe they were right about me. Both of those are traps too. And both of them are designed to waste the momentum building inside you. Here's what the quiet period actually is. It's loading time. When a system undergoes a massive update, it goes offline. It gets slow. It looks, from the outside, like nothing is happening. But inside, every process is being reconfigured. Every old file is being assessed. Dead weight is being purged. The system goes quiet, so it can come back online running something the old version never could. You are in that offline period right now. And the people who hurt you see your silence as defeat. They're watching you not react, not clap back, not make moves they can see. And they're reading it as weakness. Good. Let them. Let them interpret the charging cable as surrender. Because when the battery hits 100%, you won't be announcing it. They'll just feel the shift. Let me paint you a picture, a specific kind of person. You've seen them. Maybe you've known one. Maybe you didn't recognize what you were looking at until later. They don't talk much about what happened to them. They don't perform their pain. But if you look closely, if you really study them, there's something different behind the eyes. This person has been to the bottom of something. Not the middle, not the edges. The actual bottom. The place where all the stories you told yourself about the world stopped working. Where the people you counted on showed you who they really were. Where the plan didn't just fail, it detonated. And somehow, impossibly, they found the floor. And they pushed off it. What separates this person from everyone else isn't talent. It's not even toughness. It's that they made a decision, usually unconscious, usually in a moment of absolute darkness. that they were not going to let the worst thing that ever happened to them also be the last thing, that the story wasn't ending there, that the people who built the trap were not going to be the authors of the conclusion, that they would rather drag themselves forward with broken hands than let the wrong people write the ending. You made that decision too. You might not remember making it consciously, but something in you chose to stay. Something chose to breathe. Something refused to let that be the final frame. And that decision, that one unconscious choice in the dark, is the most important thing you have ever done. Everything from here is built on that foundation. Everything from here is the consequence of that single refusal. Let's get into the uncomfortable truth. The one people in your situation rarely let themselves think about. Let's talk about what is actually happening to the people who did this, right now, in real time, while you're watching this. Not what you want to happen to them, what is actually happening, because it's more interesting than revenge. And honestly, it's more devastating. The people who put pressure on you to collapse were counting on a specific return on their investment. They expected to see you fall. They expected the story to end with them standing and you gone. And when that didn't happen, when you refused to disappear, something broke in their logic. Because the whole architecture of what they did was justified, in their heads, by the outcome they expected. When the outcome didn't arrive, they had to start building a different story, a more complicated one. One where they're still the smart, powerful, untouchable ones, but somehow you're still there. That cognitive work is expensive. It costs them something every day you're still visible. Every time you appear, in person, on social media, through mutual connections, it's an invoice they have to pay. And here's the thing about people who operate the way they operate. They're not wired for the long game. The trap was their move. They don't have a follow-up. People who rely on coordinated attacks, timing, and betrayal to eliminate a threat have one primary weapon: surprise. You've survived the surprise, which means they are now entirely improvising. And improvisers panic. Watch them closely. Watch how they start talking about you more, not less. Watch how they monitor what you're doing. Watch how they check on you, through other people, through channels they think you can't see. That's not power, that's obsession. That's the behavior of someone who needed something from your collapse and didn't get it. And now they're stuck in a loop, watching you live, and it costs them every single day. I want you to do something. I want you to think about who you were before this happened. Not in a nostalgic way, not with grief. I want you to look at that person with clarity. That person was kinder in a way that made them exploitable. That person trusted in a way that didn't account for the depth of what some people are capable of. Now look at who you are after it. You don't take things at face value anymore. You watch behavior, not words. You notice inconsistencies faster. You feel the temperature of a room before anyone speaks. You've developed a kind of perceptual clarity that most people don't have, because most people haven't been through what you've been through. That's not damage. Please stop calling it damage. A surgeon's hands after 1,000 procedures aren't damaged. They're calibrated. A detective's instinct after 100 cases isn't paranoia. It's pattern recognition refined to a razor edge. You have been calibrated. You have been refined. What got burned away in that fire wasn't you. It was the parts of you that could be used against you. The trap removed your naivety. It removed your excessive trust. It removed your need for approval from people who were always going to withdraw it. Those were liabilities dressed as virtues, and the situation, painful as it was, performed surgery on you. You came out lighter, not emptier. Lighter, carrying only what actually belongs to you. And now you move differently. Even if you don't fully feel it yet, you move differently. Here's the part of this that I cannot fully explain, and I'm not going to pretend I can. But I've watched enough stories, real ones, not inspirational content, to notice something that doesn't have a clean name. There seems to be a timing mechanism embedded in situations like yours, like a biological clock. Except instead of ticking toward age, it's ticking toward alignment. The people who were supposed to collide with your path, the ones who will change everything, they're in motion right now. You can't see them. They can't see you. But the distance is closing. The opportunity that was supposed to be yours all along, it didn't disappear. It redirected. It's moving through a different route because the original route was compromised. But the destination hasn't changed. This is not wishful thinking. This is what happens repeatedly in the documented history of people who survive the unsurvivable. The pattern is undeniable once you start looking for it. A catastrophic collapse, followed by an impossibly long silence, followed by an eruption of alignment that makes everything that came before it look like preparation. Because it was preparation. The entire impossible chapter was preparation. And the people who tried to end your story only succeeded in fast-tracking you to the version of it that was always meant to unfold. So here's where I land. Here's the thing I need to leave you with before this ends. The most dangerous thing you can do right now, the one move that would actually give your opponents what they wanted, is to believe their version of who you are. They have a story about you, a version of you that is small, breakable, finished. That version exists nowhere except in their minds. Don't go move into it. Your identity is not determined by what they did. It is not determined by the trap. It is not determined by the people who watched and said nothing, or the people who helped and disappeared after. Your identity is determined by the one who couldn't be killed, the one who's still here. That version of you, the one that kept breathing when it shouldn't have, that is the real one. The trap was supposed to be your story, the thing people remember when they hear your name. Remember when that happened to them. That was supposed to be your legacy, a cautionary tale, a warning, a ghost. But you're not a ghost. You're not a cautionary tale. You're not finished. You're the part of the story that nobody wrote because nobody thought you'd make it here. And now, the chapter starts that nobody saw coming. Not your opponents, not the people who doubted you, not even you, not fully. But something in you always suspected it. Something in you knew that if you could just survive long enough, just stay standing long enough, the narrative would shift, the gravity would shift, and everything they tried to bury you with would become the ground you build on. So here is your call to action, not a soft one, a real one. Stop narrating your pain to people who don't deserve the story. Start moving, quietly, deliberately, without announcement, toward the version of your life that justifies everything you survived. Not for them, not to prove something, but because the person who refused to die in that impossible situation deserves to actually live. Build that life, be that person. Let the results be the only statement that matters. They rigged it to kill you. They engineered the collapse. They timed it perfectly. And somehow, impossibly, infuriatingly, magnificently, it didn't work. Now it's your turn. And this time, nobody gets to rig the outcome. This time, the only one who decides how this ends is the one who survived. And that's you.